See you at the other side. We are at the other side right now, and we have a topic under discussion this morning, which is strengthening community groups to prevent violence against women and girls. Well, that's the topic we are exploring today because if you look in our society today, you notice that the violence is on increase, especially against women and girls, and that's why we need to talk about it. Because some people will always say, why do we always talk about it? We need to, and we keep on talking about it because we need to reduce it to the barest minimum. Like, I don't understand why people would decide to be violent and then not against their fellow, like men, not against their fellow men, it's against women and girls. Like maybe their children or their cousin, their niece, people around them or the house help that they have. So it's important that we talk about this and see how we can create that awareness and bring them to the consciousness to realize that we should live peacefully and have equal rights as the women and then live in our homes peacefully. All right, so we have some guests in our studio this morning that will help us explore this topic this morning. We have Ugochi Abala Eyaforike. She is the Executive Director, SIDEC, that is Southeast Zonal Coordinator, rapper. Glad to have you on the show this morning.
Glad to have you, my dear. Anambra dono kaino rian we paria.
All right, we also have Christiana Eguma, Project Officer, Women Rights Protection and Alternative Rapper. Glad to have you too.
Good morning. I'm glad to be on the show this morning.
All right, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you're going to learn so much today on our discussion because of our discussion this morning. Well, let's start with you, Ugochi. When we talk about some of this violence against girls, against women, it would be right that we point out some of the common forms of this violence that some community groups that we're talking about, that we're about to create, talking about how to create them, should be aware of.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. When you talk about forms of those violence and groups, it's not really that we're creating new groups because we know that there are already existing groups and already existing spaces. Some spaces are safe, some are not yet safe. And the essence of our program with Rapper in the South is because we've just started our zonal meeting, mobilizing across the zones to ensure that there are safe spaces that people can actually key in and report issues with respect to violence against women and girl child. So those forms of violence that we talked about is that at some point people don't even know that disrespecting someone, the way you talk to people in an abusive manner, is a form of violence that, you are really violating someone's right. I often heard one man telling me that women need to be dealt with. You need to beat your wife. I was like, for what? Why do you need to beat your wife? He said, you need to beat her at least small so as to reset her brain. So some men still feel that you need to beat your wife or your girlfriend or your sister to reset her brain so that she can start thinking proactively.
Are they computers?
I'm just like, that was a language a man used. Like, okay. So for us, that's a form of violence. This battery between assault, disrespectful or being disrespectful to women folks. These are forms of violence that we say. Even trafficking at some point when you traffic someone from one place is a form of violence because you don't even know, because this person is under your care, you don't even know if this is the jurisdiction the person or the route the person will want to take. So these are forms of violence that we want to say enough is enough and we say no to.
All right, having mentioned this form of violence, let's come to now. We're talking about how to reduce it to the barest minimum because I know it can never be eradicated completely. But God willing, if we can, but now we're talking about how to reduce it. So, what strategies can the already existing groups, can they, use to engage men in prevention of this violence against women and girls?
Okay, thank you very much for that. We RAP, Women's Rights Advancement and Protection Alternative, is a national organization that is formed in 1999 by the Honorable Justice Lami Fati Abubakar and led by Chief Executive Hajia Sauda Tumadi. And our target is to advance the right of women in both private and public spaces. We are advocating for that. And we are in Anambra for the Southeast Zonal engagement. We want to strengthen community groups, just as Ugochi talked about. There are groups existing already. What we need to do is to empower them with capacity. To say, okay, for the existing group, you can use your community spaces as safe spaces. How do you do that? You engage your traditional leaders, engage them concerning maybe those norms that are there, because each community knows their terrain. Each community knows forms of violence that are happening in that community that needs to be formed. So that engagement comes from having that, coming as a group to engage the traditional ruler to say, this and this is happening. Can you lend your voice? By even standing up to make the traditional ruler make a public pledge against violence against women and girls, saying, I'm standing against violence against women and girls in this community. Taking it from there, the traditional leader can also make his palace a safe space, whereby a woman, an informal safe space, a woman can come in not afraid, because by the time you say make a formal report, some people are scared of. Some communities don't even have police station. So we talk about strengthening them to begin to make that demand of their traditional ruler. We also talk about their own town union meetings, their own August meeting, community gatherings, so we can equip them to use every of the community gatherings to tell people, to enlighten them more about states, laws of the state, like the VAWG Act, other laws like Child Rights Act, other laws that some in even the remote villages have not heard about, so that strengthening them to ensure that they are always there to talk about these things. First of all, that's prevention target. Talk about it and increase the knowledge that these things need to stop.
Okay, I like that you mentioned August meeting, because we have barely a few days before
Yeah.
it starts, and I think that's a very good platform where this particular message can be passed down to. But now the question is, it's only women that attend August meeting. Now, because we are talking about men, how do we engage men? So you talked about traditional rulers, probably PGs, and also youth leaders in our community. But sometimes you notice that some of these communities, there are people that, met out all this,
lay down rules,
widowhood, how they treat widows, all those harsh treatment they give to widows. So how do we engage these men to understand that? Just like the people that are saying they want to reset somebody's brain. To understand that you don't need to reset anybody's brain for crying out loud. This is the 21st century. You just need to talk. If something is going wrong, it's just about communication. Dialogue. Sit down, talk with the person, and know what the person's problems are.
Yeah, communication.
So now the question is, what about the men? August meeting, women's meeting, church meeting, it's just about women. Women talking to themselves and all that. Yeah, I understand that it's okay for you to understand that when you are being treated badly, you can go and report. But the men that are doing the act, that are perpetuating the act, how do we engage them?
All right, yeah, before I come to the question of how do we engage the men, I think when you talk about violence, at some point women also violate their fellow women's right, because sometimes even when you want to excommunicate, ostracize a woman from her husband, the male folk needs the women buy-in to get that implemented. So that's why we want to first of all start, why we are mentioning August meeting or emphasizing on August meeting, is that we want to start by educating the women first.
Okay.
These are your rights.
These
are your dues. These are your don'ts. Where your right starts and stop is where the next person's right starts. These are those things you can avoid. Like I said, this our program in Anambra started since Wednesday. During Christiana's presentation, one of her presentations, she talked about family counseling as a model. Oftentimes, you see that some marriages are breaking today, homes are breaking today, society, church collapsing because of that people lack that counseling. So we also want to use the August meeting as a safe space and also a platform where we educate our women that What is that thing that actually causes violence in your homes, your neighborhood, or where you work with people? So that people can understand. Like I said today, I talked about respect. When people disrespect their spouse, their friends, or their relatives, that can lead to violence. So August meeting, we know we are talking to our fellow women. The whole essence is to re-conscientize them and reawaken that spirit of understanding that, oh, this is a form of violence. This is something I don't need to do. Then how do we talk to our men, the male folks right now? So there are so many platforms. As much as August meeting for the first leg at the church level, we are doing August meeting. At the community level, we are doing August meeting. Then the umbrella in this Igbo setting, during August, town unions normally come back for town union meeting. That town union meeting, we've clamored for it in the past that it should comprise of men and women. In the past, from years ago, usually be those are normally sit there where they take decisions are just the male folk. But we are now talking that if we really want to get things right, if we want to make things participatory, we need our women to be part of town union meetings. And we got that achieved, that women now participate. But in some communities, women only come to serve cola. But we are now saying that giving us that space to serve cola is not yet enough, because it's during this August that communities come to decide, even prioritize their needs, right? So we need our women, their voices need to be heard, because you can't be talking about health. You're talking about primary health care. Without talking about women that will say that they are the ones that are the final beneficiaries because of his women and children. And today we are talking about women and girl child. So August meeting, beyond the one we know for women, they also, town union, they normally sit and take decisions of their town. So it's a platform to engage them. Then we have our CMOs in the church. It also is a platform. Then we have the traditional rulers, the traditional governing council. We have the traditional rulers of Anambra State, for instance, the Imo State. It's also a body that we can also key in. We have Asatu Men's Wing. For instance, Asatu Men's Wing, they normally meet every first Saturday of the first Saturday of the month. So it's also a platform that we can engage them and know that, oh, we are talking to the entire state. Because everything rises and falls on leadership. So we have that Asatu Men's Wing. We have the traditional rulers, we have the CMOs, we have the church council organization for male folks. So there are lots of platforms and spaces. But the question is this, those spaces, are they really safe? That would be another question. Those spaces existing, are they really safe? If not, what's the orientation? And how can we reconscientize them to start thinking, start identifying all those norms that we really need to curb? For instance, I planted all this dwarf oil palm. After 2 years, the thing started producing. It was time for harvest, and I was educating my son. I asked, this is the way to cut it, and he was struggling with it. I said, okay, let me show you. But that was a life. When I made that post, some people were like, why are you doing this? You're not supposed to cut. A woman that gives birth to children, you're not supposed to cut oil palm. You know, that's stereotype. I'm just coming towards that cultural issues now. So when we are having that discussion now, I was engaging one traditional ruler with one other man. So I not told that traditional ruler, this was the feedback I got from my followers on social media. What's your position on this? He said, it's not an issue in my community. In my community, it's not an issue. You can cut it so long as you don't climb. So you now see to it. At what point can we get other traditional rulers mobilized? You talk about violence against women. You see a woman will plant this coconut, dwarf oil palm, and also bitter cola and cola nuts. Your cola nuts, because you're talking about cultural norms, because those things are also violent. Because that woman is a widow, because she's a single mother, because she's a divorcee, because of that, those things are cultural practices that inhibit her from harvesting her cash crops that empowers her.
That's quite interesting. Okay, let's come back to you. Now we've talked about the engagement of the traditional rulers, our PGs, and then all these platforms, the local platforms that we already have where we can preach this message and pass it down to people. Because most time, even all this gathering, you don't see all the women there. It's just few people, selected few that are there. But we're talking about how they can still pass it down to those people that didn't attend. Now again, I'm also concerned about making that safe place where you can go in probably and you have an issue, go in and report and it's being tackled. How is RAPA collaborating with these local groups to see that, I mean, we have safe spaces where women can go in and, you know, report one or two that has been done against them, and they will go and they will be assured that it will be treated.
Okay, yes. Currently, even in our program of engagement, RAPA is training 10 volunteers for Anambra State, and each of the states of the South Zone, it will replicate there. And these 10 volunteers are to serve as centers. As centers are linked to this group, as centers who have been who can continue the capacity building for the group, who can serve as referral centers, who can also serve as desk officers. What they do is that their numbers can be given to the group to reach out to them, and they can link them up to where to get help. Referral pathways are that you are linking people to where they can get the right kind of services. And one of the things you can talk about safe space is that sometimes safe space might not really be that the woman leaves her home to come and stay there. Safe space is that, okay, the traditional ruler or even that town hall, even that hall that is built in the village that they lock every time. Somebody can be commissioned to say, okay, maybe on Fridays or on Wednesdays, open these places so that if there is a woman who wants to narrate her story, some women don't even want to move forward to say, I want to arrest. They just want to be heard. So they can begin from that stage. And as knowledge increases, they will come to that point of informed decision so that somebody is there guiding them on how you manage that place as safe space. There are too many places locked that are built in communities that are not being used. So it's engaging them to understand that a woman needs that safe space to come and talk about it. And then as you engage them forward, they now know that, oh, maybe if we gather here on Friday, we can begin to scale it up to counseling sessions as Ugochi talked about. Counseling session is that people are hurting. They have not talked about it. And sometimes there are issues that can even be handled. So you can use that format to teach them conflict resolution also. Like strengthening the community group has to also teach them some of these skills. Make them to begin to make reservation of funds. Like women donate a lot of money in their meetings, in their contribution. They can begin to keep some portion and say, okay, peradventure any woman have an issue, we will dip from this fund to be able to transport her to that place. And these are things that might not happen automatically, but it is now built from step to step. We have come to this point, we understand that these things are necessary. Even the August gathering, our gathering every year, our annual event, we can incorporate, okay, in this year we are going to employ a professional counselor to come and take women and men in sessions. We can deliberately and intentionally make it part of it. And if we do that over the time, we'll begin to see that some cases we have prevented violence, because some cases that would have entered into violence would have understood what they needed to do to caution that matter before it gets to the point of violence. So strengthening of our community safe space is an ongoing thing, because we are utilizing them to ensure that our target is prevention. And what do? When you prevent, you you break the cycle of violence. Those children that would have been violated and turned out to be either perpetrators or receivers of violence would have learned that no, you have break that cycle and they will no longer be violated. So the community is a good one because it's an organic place. They must meet, they gather in their activities. So utilizing it to sensitize them, utilizing it to say you can go a step further to have a safe space, utilizing it to say you can begin to even have reservation of fund to be able to finance some of the little maybe expenditures that come with assisting survival.
All right,
Thank you.
So much of that. Let's come back to you. She mentioned children now who have been violated. And my question is, how do you, at this point, involve the youth in prevention and also for them to become agents of change? Because we said, we continue to say that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Just like Christiana said, we just trained our 10 volunteers. The training was around both cultural values, rights, project management, fundraising, and name it. So we just trained our volunteers. In our volunteers, we were intentional about the youth. And that's why we're able to mobilize and train youth from our universities and secondary schools. So we are intentional to ensure that we capture them at that level. Because even if in the Bible, Proverbs 2:6 says, train up a child the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it. So we're intentional in selecting our youth from the secondary schools and from the university. Beyond that, we also got some lecturers, the academia, some professors from the university. The essence is to see that we train our youth to be beyond being whistleblowers, activists on their own. Like the governor of Anambra said, will always say, when you see something, you say something. So beyond seeing something and saying something, we now stepped further by engaging some lecturers, some professors in this field to see, because we know a lot do happen at the university level and secondary school levels right now. So how can we also have a safe space where a victim can come in and report before we start escalating to the state level or to other organized safe spaces? So that's one thing we've done. We did not rule that out. We're intentional when we're training our observers, when we're selecting our observers, when we are mapping our observers to know who actually can play roles. It's not something then curbing violence against women and girls is not something we will eradicate one day. It's something that will take a gradual process. It's something that by training 10 people go out there, mobilize 10 on their own. That means we are having informed 100 people. Informed 100 people going out there to mobilize directly or indirectly. We are getting our people, we are getting our society sanitized. So we're intentional when we're doing our selection.
All right, thank you. You know, one thing is about having that safe space. Another thing is about healing. When we talk about some of these women that have been violated or some of these girls that have been violated, some of them, it takes them time. Some people, even lifetime, they've not even healed from all the hurts and difficulties they went through. Yeah. Now, I'm talking about some of this group we're talking about. How can you come, to provide this, help them, not even provision, helping these people that have been violated to be healed. And also maybe to start off again, because most of them, maybe their means of livelihood has been destroyed. So how do you help this?
Okay, yes, thank you very much. That's why we're talking about improving networking, even among the community group. Once the communities now have like a focal person that can reach out maybe to other people, what we intend to do is that by the time that cases are reported, you now know this one is in need of psychosocial support or counseling section. There are people who are doing counseling. There are organizations who offer psychosocial support. So you are like a lifeguard linking that person to say, okay, we have a survivor and we have a little bit, of money to transport her to the place to get it. And even beyond that, we are strengthening the group to begin to raise up help from even within the communities of people who are well-meaning people who can help and say, okay, in this year, maybe I usually donate bag of rice or wrappers, which are the usual things they give to women. Maybe our demand now, because of all that is happening, in this year, can you sponsor for us can you pay for us a professional counselor that will come into our village and take sessions? Because yes, you have been giving bag of rice and maybe wrappers, and yet you are still being beaten. You are still being so many things. So the woman needs her sanity, and all these things can come in little by little in phase while the community women are informed in their organic form. They can make those demands. And one of the things we are also strengthening them is accountability, because starting from your own group, what are those accountability measures? Because just as Ugochi said, women too are perpetrators. So within your group, do you have any kind of, within your constitution as a group, there are sanctions for people who violate women and girls, whether they are women or men? Then beyond that, you can raise that accountability to now to other people who are outside your group, to now say, okay, my community, we are going to advocate to the Igwe. We have seen this not working right. We want this to change. We want you to help us to change it. You can also advocate to your rep and councillors and say, yes, our primary health care is not working. So the strength of a group is very huge that you can make it in bits. Our primary health care is not working. This year, we want renovation of that primary health care. You can come also as accountability to say, no, what is project due to this community from whatever is allocated from the state government. You can ask questions. Maybe they allocated borehole. You will hear now, borehole has been allocated, then why is there no borehole? Maybe a transformer has been allocated. Why are there no transformers? You can then ask questions and begin to follow up. And we are also training them to begin to help themselves to track how many transformers was located. Who is the transformer with? So, and that is where the networking comes. You collaborate with people in government, you collaborate with people who are having this information. Once you have them, you can begin, you know, when you talk from an informed point, we heard that 3 transformers was allocated to our village. We have not seen anyone. They say, where did you hear? We say, we got our sources from here. So where is the transformer? And we heard testimony from one of our state coordinator from Enugu that they had to get so many transformers that they were sitting down on. As soon as their own community group heard that it was being held, they went to the person and say, we heard that they gave us transformer, bring it. And after all battle and all forms, the transformers came out and they have been installed. Wow. So these are what groups can do.
Wow, wow. Thank you. Very impressive. Okay, just before we go, tell us more about the activities of RAPA. You already, the seminar, is it still ongoing?
Yes. Today we are training women of resilience group, those women that have experienced violence, survive it, and they are doing well. Yes, just like Christiana said, that sometimes, okay, the patient also asks, sometimes when these women are just attacked, they fall back to 0 level.
Yes.
And picking up themselves again is always a struggle. So, but we've seen some women that still survived it. Yeah, some of those women that survived it, today we'll be training them. Beyond training them, we also want to hear their own stories, what makes them strong, how did they survive it, and what are those things that they want to share, and what are those things that they want to impact. Because I, as a person, I believe that that encounter or experience that I wouldn't want some other person to experience it. So, yes, some people have been there and they survived it, so you can actually survive it. If one survived it, I can also survive it. So what we are doing now, today we'll be training our women of resilience group, and they'll be sharing their experiences. On Wednesday, we trained our volunteers and also some leaders from different states, neighboring states in the southeast. And also yesterday we trained our strategists, the CBOs, community-based organizations, and other media. So media were there. So we're able to launch our program in the state again. So moving forward, beyond counseling, the project pathway is preventive measures, like how do we prevent violence against women and girl child? So by forming and training our volunteers, it's expected that our volunteers will go back to their wards, because our interventions ranges from the ward level. That is, it's not just our community level, ranging from the ward level, community level. At the AGAs, we now have our focal person that we're talking about, gender intersectionality and inclusion. So at that level, that's the referral point, that's the contact person that if you have challenge in your LGA, please contact this person. Then the person will now refer back to us, and will now start linking to state actors. For instance, the Anambra State makes provision for this with Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. At some point, we'll be working with Ministry of Women and Affairs. We've been doing it in the past, but with this intervention, we are getting it more organized, more structured. Like we are referring to FIDA, Nigeria, FIDA, Anambra State. because also we have a gender court in Anambra State, GBV court, that addresses issues around women and girl child. So it's also something, it's a leverage for us. We're going to synergize with them. We're already doing it, but we're going to get it better organized right now to say, okay, we got this issue of rape, even be able to sensitize the family that you don't need to wash or clean the baby within this number of hours. This is what you need to do first. And after doing all those things, to go to the police and report. After those things, we now refer to FIDA. We now also refer to Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. So we are starting from the ward level. We'll sensitize our people. We've trained them on what volunteerism is all about. They know their roles and responsibilities. We've developed our action plans on what we want to do, the number of advocacies we want to carry out, and sensitization. So we'll have our action plans developed.
All right, thank you so much. Quickly before we go, this intervention, this campaign, do you see it yielding positive results in a few months?
Yes, I see it yielding positive results, and we want to say thank you to Ford Foundation. They are the one that sponsored. This intervention is supported by Ford Foundation. The rapper is trying to establish or strengthen the community group, and we want to say we see it yielding results because there are interventions like that have yielded results. Like rapper had a same Ford Foundation sponsored violence against engaging leaders of faith and culture to stand against violence against women and girls, and we had a lot of safe spaces within that project, and that was the concept. That was what we are scaling now to other states, because we saw the result, because people began to freely go to those safe spaces and report, and they are now strengthening. Like the women of resilience now, their numbers are increasing because they are like a support structure for that woman that is violated, so that whatever happens, you are safe within this place to say they know my pain, because they are part of, they are survivors, and they can link me to help, and we are strengthening them to have that network of referral pathways where they can always link survivors to access help.
Okay, and this is where we're going to end this particular segment of the show. A very big thank you to both of you for this good work you are doing for us, because we are women, and for our children, girl child. I want to say a very big thank you to both of you for doing your best, and also Rapper, you are the zonal coordinator, Southeast zonal coordinator. Yeah. Thank you so much, and keep doing your best to see that the rights of women and girls are not violated anymore. Thank you so much, Ugochi Abala Ihia for being here this morning.
Agalaba Ihia Horike.
Agalaba. Oh,
Agalaba.
Sorry, Agalaba Ihia. Sorry. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for thanking me.
And also, Christiana Eguma. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it on this particular segment of Good Morning Anambra. My name is Chidima Oramwa. Thank you so much for being part of it. We are taking a short break, but we'll be right back. Stay with us.